Hey, Exit Your Thoughts here, coming at you with another video. Uh, I'm not practicing for being in class. I have my hand raised for a whole different reason. And that's because there's a little bit of a change coming in my life. I shot a video at the beginning of the summer and kind of explained what this fall was going to look like. And didn't really know where I was going to end up. And don't worry. I mean, those of you freaking out that my hand's still in the air, it's there for a purpose. But I didn't know where I was going to end up. I didn't know where I was going to teach. I didn't know what kind of job I was going to be doing. I didn't know if I was going to be, driving a street sweeper truck or which I've done before, digging ditches, which I've done before, washing dishes, which I've done before, working in a bank, which I've done before. You get the idea. I've done a lot of things. But I actually did recently take a position at a local manufacturer. So I am going to take a little while off from teaching. There's not any positions available for me where I'm at right now. And so I'm going to go back into manufacturing, which is why that hand's in the air. So I'm going to go work in a machine shop making sheet metal for a local manufacturer. Can't tell you who, can't tell you where, can't tell you any details about that disclosure deals. But anyway, one of the things that you learn as you start working in machine shops is jewelry, especially rings, are not allowed. And this one, I haven't taken it off in months. I've been married to my wife for well over 20 years. And the thing that was kind of interesting is about 7 years into our marriage, I started working in a machine shop. So this shiny gold ring came off my finger, and it stayed off my finger for almost 10 years. And that's a safety deal. With these gold rings, if you get them caught in a piece of machinery, it can do a couple of things. It can deglove your finger, which is probably the most disgusting thing to ever describe to a high school student when they come into your shop, what degloving is. Imagine this part of your hand is a glove and you go whoop. Yeah, it can take the skin off your finger completely. The medical treatment for degloving is cut the finger off. So I kind of like to have that finger. The other thing is if this gets crushed, if that ring gets crushed around my finger, it'll cut off the blood circulation. And then I've got about 20 or 30 minutes to get to a hospital and get that thing cut off. Most machine shops, we can get that cut off in about 2 minutes. Most of the time we have equipment to do that, But yeah, this is going to be the first time to take this off for quite a while. When I taught, I did still wear my ring, partly because it was stuck, which is why the hand's in the air, trying to get the swelling to go down. But I don't know, it's just nice to have the ring on. Didn't work with a lot of equipment that had issues with, degloving or crushing. So I thought, squish that one in a roller while working with students. That was fun. The only serious crushing injury I ever had, even though I worked in a machine shop for 10 years, was actually as a high school teacher. You think back to the shop teacher in UHF. Yeah, it's kind of like that. My students were mortified as my hand got caught in a roller, and it was a hand operated roller, and a student was cranking it, and I don't know. I wasn't thinking. I reached my hand at the last moment because some metal had slipped, and I tried to readjust it. He kept cranking, and my hand went in. Something that kid's never going to forget. In fact, it's probably something none of the kids in that shop are going to forget, which I feel bad about. But try not to make any new memories. So we're going to try to, I don't think that's going to come off real easy. We're going to add some lubrication there. If you've never tried butter as a hand lotion, I recommend it. I had a dermatologist once that said that the best hand lotion you could ever use was butter. because it was all natural. It melted at your body temperature. You know, it was organic. It was just the best thing. Ooh, that was tight. I'm going to go get a paper towel. I'll be right back. So there, got that off. It was one of the I, I start I start this week, and this is one of those tasks that I didn't really want to do because I have, this summer I've kind of missed teaching, missed the idea of it, and the idea of going and working in a factory, though it's something I did for 10 years of my life, was something that wasn't as exciting. You know, when you go and do factory work, you start the shift with a pile of material. You finish the shift with a pile of material. You come in the next day and there's still a pile of material. And you make stuff. Widgets come in, widgets go out. And it's very, in a climate controlled building with artificial lighting, it's hard to see time pass, which is one of the things that's difficult about being out of teaching for this year, is because as a teacher, I saw my time passed in my students. I saw students from their freshman year on, and I got to see them for 4 years. And you got to see them grow up. When you see kids come in as a junior high student and they're all geeky and gangly and uncoordinated, and then you see them grow up to be a young adult and graduate and walk off the stage with that diploma in hand, and then you see them years later. I had a student that would call me about every 6 months. Student I helped out quite a bit. I haven't had a call from him in a while, which kind of makes me wonder and worry. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting change going back into just the regular working world, not working with students. So it's going to be different. Kind of sad about that. I really enjoyed the challenge of working with students. Every day was definitely different. Class to class, you never knew what was going to happen. Absolutely unpredictable. When you're a shop teacher, you have no idea what the day will bring. Well, just being an ag teacher, you have no idea what the day will bring. I had, when I was teaching in my first school, I was getting ready to go. It was a Friday. It was a perfect day. I was ready to go home. I lived 2.5 hours from where I worked. Yeah. I went home only on weekends. And so it's a Friday, and a student had just been working on his rig, and we go to leave. And as I'm coming out in the front of the building to go across to check my mailbox, I watch the student pull out. He revs the engine, and I hear this clunk, ting, 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 and his driveline dropped out of the bottom of his truck. Well, I was the shop teacher, so I went out and helped him, and we got a chunk of rope and tied the driveline up and locked it in 4-wheel drive and limped it around to the shop. And there I was for an extra 2 hours. You never know what's going to change there. Same school. Had my co-teacher kind of surprised me one morning. I'm teaching away my class, and my co-teacher walks up to me and says, "Mr. Ross, can you put this chicken in your office, please? One of the students picked it up on their way to school." And she handed me a box with a live chicken in it. Because being an ag teacher, that's normal. having a student show up with a trailer with his horse in it because he's got a rodeo event after school. He's like, "Mr. Ross, can you feed my horses. They're going to be out here. Just make sure they got food and water, and make sure the students stay away from them. Yep, I can do that. Uh, just it was always something different. It was always predictable, or not predictable. Well, the predictable part was it was always unpredictable, and you got to really get to know students on a very close basis. Some of them, I had a group of students that when I was teaching in Sheridan, that most of them came from homes that they weren't living with their original parents. They were living with a step parent or a single parent, and most all of my students came from broken homes. And being the ag teacher there for all those years, I picked up a nickname, and I've never given myself a nickname, but I picked that one up, and it was Dad. So the students, whenever we went on a trip and we'd pull into, say, a McDonald's to get lunch, we'd all line up, and I had my card, so I'd pay for everybody. And the kid would be in line, and and the person would tell him the total. He says, "Oh no, it's all one order. Dad's paying." And the next kid would step up, and they'd say, "Nope, Dad's paying." Um, and so on it would go with 10 or 12 kids, and they would all call me Dad, and that's just what they did on our trips, is they called me Dad, which is quite an honor. So I really will miss that part. Um, Now, does that mean I'm going to stay in manufacturing forever? I don't know. Am I going to go back to teaching? I don't know. Um, I go where I'm called, and right now my calling is to support my family and kind of gain some experience with local manufacturing, to understand where the local manufacturers are, and what they need. The company that I'm going to work for is really, really, really heavily involved in giving back to the community. They've done some awesome things here, and I'd kind of like to be a part of that. Um, I would love to, in the future, be able to be a liaison between the company and the local college and the local high school, and go in um, when I'm not on shift, and volunteer some time at the machine shop there, and show the students what real manufacturing is like, and what they're training for. That is something I'd really like. But yeah, so for those of you wondering why I'm not doing back to school stuff, that's it. I'm heading back to manufacturing for a little bit. So it means that that's going to go in secure storage. And when I'm done with manufacturing, it'll go back on. So yeah, it's kind of a odd thing to take that off. Got that swollen mark of where, and the non-tan spot where the ring was. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. Sorry, this is more of a little monologue than anything. I didn't get to the greenhouse building today. That's coming. It was 100 degrees today, so fall is sputtering. It was cooler last week, and we had some rain, but this today it was 100. It was uncomfortable to be out here, so I'll get back to that in the coming days. But yeah, anyway, I don't know what you learned, but I hope you learned something. I hope you at least enjoyed Ag Teacher Thoughts Out. No, it doesn't mean I'm getting a divorce. It means I'm going to a machine shop and they don't allow rings. Safety glasses on, long hair tied back, that won't be a problem. Safety shoes, no rings, no jewelry. So, yeah.